good afternoon, everyone, depending where you are. It's a great pleasure for me to be here to be talking about web data, online job advertisements, and what we can do with it. So I will share my screen now, and my presentation is about how do we take the system that in fact was built by Mauro, Alessandro, and other of his colleagues, of their colleagues, and build it or transform it into a system that we can use to collect data from the web and use it to produce statistics, right? So that's the work that we are doing right now in the European statistical system. So I will go through a bit of where are we coming from and what are we doing right now and what is the target that we want to achieve. Yeah. So, in fact, there's this thing about web scraping, and we have been doing web scraping, like Eduardo was saying. I've been working on this area already for a few years. It went very fast. And the web scraping, of course, was there since the beginning. And when you do these small studies, I have to say that from the several big data pilots that we have run, web scraping was normally seen as the easiest one. Because the most difficult thing when you run an experiment or you want to, doing some research with big data, the first step is the most difficult one, which is getting access to the data. So web scraping is, well, data is just there, you just take it. That's how it looks like in the beginning. So web scraping is easy. In fact, it looks easy, and indeed it is easy when you do it this way. However, we want it to be, if we want to build production systems, we want it to be automated. Not that you run it by hand, your own scripts, you want somehow some level of automation. You want it to be methodologically sound, robust, so it doesn't fail. If you're going to produce some statistics and your users depend on these statistics, you want it to be robust, you don't want it to fail. You want it to be transparent, so you can build trust in whatever it is in terms of statistical outputs you're taking from the data that you're acquiring from the web. You want it to be reproducible. You want it to be consistent with the other statistics that you have in the statistical system that are available to the users. You want it, of course, to be efficient, because this is not a small study. It's something that you're going to run for a long time. It's more of a long-term commitment, right? And of course, you want some comparability over time. So, well, the conclusion is that indeed web scraping is easy. I would say, however, producing official statistics or some kind of statistics at the production level is actually difficult. And the Web Intelligence Hub is our tool in the European statistical system to take care of the difficult part. So why are we building such a Web Intelligence Hub? First, because as I was saying, we have these difficult parts that we need to take care of. Also because infrastructure with big data capabilities is required and not necessarily easy to have access to or to maintain. You need specialized skills to run it. And to actually extract some data from what you can find on the web, as you have seen from Mauro and Alessandro, and also in the official statistics context and in the European statistical system context. If we want to produce some statistics, some European statistics, we need to have all the NSIs, all the member states of the European Union ready to do it. So, and if we need to wait for the last one to be in a ready position to produce some statistics, this is obviously going to take very long, yeah, because different organizations have different capabilities, to cover this gap that exists. And the other reason is that, well, there will be an European system for online job advertisements there anyway. In this particular case, what I'm talking about is the one developed by CEDEFOP with the help of Mauro, Alessandro, and the other colleagues. And this is also an important thing. In particular, if you come from the statistics world, European context, if you have some awareness, you will know that the way we produce European statistics is mostly national statistical institutes. They produce the statistics, and Eurostat collects them. So the existence of European level systems or shared systems is actually a new thing. Yeah. And so a new thing, and by itself, so it's complex and difficult. We have to figure out how to do it, right? However, there will be an European system anyway, because there is such a need. In this particular case, CEDEFOP would have a need to do some skills intelligence. So there was a need, the system was there, and this was a reason for us to actually embark in the creation of this web intelligence hub, of this joint system in the European statistical system. So what is the context for us to build this? Of course, that what we try to do with web data comes from a bit of history, where we tried in the last years to explore big data sources for producing official statistics. It started in 2013. The first step was by the signature of what we call the Chevening Memorandum. It's an agreement between the heads of statistical offices in the European Union to, well, basically examine the potential of big data sources for official statistics. It had several different objectives, but I would say that the overall one, they all target basically was, there was a lot of talk at the time about big data, and it was normal that, well, strategically, let's see what's there. What can we do with this? Is this anything we can use? So we set up a big data action plan and roadmap that was based on a set of pilots. So we recognize that, well, we really don't know what big data is. Let's not talk in abstract. So the right way of doing it is that let's start doing some pilots, picking some big data sources, and then figure out what does it mean in terms of IT infrastructure, what does it mean in terms of skills, in terms of methodology, in terms of access to the data sources, and so on. So we had what we call an SNet, which is a consortium of national statistical institutes. We had an initial one, what we call the SNet Big Data 1. We had afterwards a second one. So running these pilots and try to draw some lessons, in what you would term in those several factors that I was mentioning, from skills to methodology. And then in 2018, at nearly the end of the first SNet, the conclusion, I would say, was that indeed there was potential in this data source to produce statistics. The potential was more on what else or what we could produce in addition that we were not doing before. So because in the beginning there was also a certain hope, I have to say, that we could reduce the cost of producing statistics. The idea was simple. Produce statistics is expensive because you have to collect all this data, process this data. It's an heavy process to do it. So it's quite expensive. Now we just heard, this is just there. This is just data that is out there. Let's just take it. Well, what the lesson we have learned was that it's not that easy to get access to the data. The data comes in different shapes and formats, and so they imply additional costs. That was not necessarily the case, that we were going to save a lot of money in producing statistics if we use these new data sources. What they would allow us to do is to produce additional statistics we didn't have before. And we are just now here in this course looking at such a clear example. where we look at skills and the attempt to use traditional methods, in particular the questionnaire-based surveys, to collect some information or produce some statistics on skills proved to be actually very difficult, if not really impossible. So there we go. That was this additional potential. In fact, this was what big data would allow us to do. There was also other reasons to embark on this, and the other was, well, the world was embarking on this train anyway, so we will need to be ready. Meaning what? If with new additional data sources, there is new information that is made available to policy analysts, to policymaker, data analysts, researchers, well, this data is going to be used because users use the data that they have available to them. So it was inevitable for the statistical system to consider these sources and make the best use of it. This is quite, it's not obvious, not trivial to understand how to do it, because big data is composed of many different data sources, from geolocation data that you get from the mobile network, mobile phone networks, from the data you get from the web. They are very different in nature, in fact. So it was quite complex. What was clear after this initial experiment was that, yes, we have to do something, and we start talking about implementation. How do we go now from doing pilots to actually start integrating these sources in the production of statistics? And eventually, at some point in time, and progressively over the years, we started seeing the introduction of these new sources in official statistics. And that has happened slowly, of course, in a few cases, and this will continue for a few years more. So its second stage was, in fact, a focus on implementation, which is where we are now. And that's where the Web Intelligence, or the development of the Web Intelligence Hub, is actually part of. One of the lessons that we learned from the initial experiments was that the problem with big data was that we arrived too late, actually. So the data was already there. So we didn't have much control. And one of the biggest problems with many of these data sources were that we didn't have much to contribute to. Yeah, they were just there. It was difficult to get access. It was in formats and following standards that were not appropriate for us. So I have to apologize. I think you can hear a cat in the background. I'm sorry. There's not much I can do about it, as you know. As I try to shut him off, he will just meow even louder. So let's just hope that he will give up. So we moved to the next stage. We wanted to focus less on the data that we had around us and focus more on what we wanted to produce. And this is the change from talking about big data to talk about, in the beginning, we started talking about smart statistics. What do we mean by this? Of course, we took inspiration from smart systems. And in fact, from the several types of big data sources, the one that seemed to be or will be the most preeminent is what we call the Internet of Things, and the information coming from sensors. Most of it integrated on what we call smart cities and smart systems. So our idea was that, well, we should not just take the data after it comes to us. If there are smart systems being built, acquiring this data and supporting decisions and decision-making processes, the statistical production should be integrated in these systems. Yeah, and we generalize this system, to talk about all data sources. This is less obvious, of course, when we talk about web, but the principles that we drew for smart statistics, they will come from this. We talked about trusted because, of course, smart statistics can be done by, well, anyone who have these systems, right? What we wanted with trusted smart statistics was to bring the characteristics, the institutional setup that we have in official statistics, in particular, the independence of this system, the guarantees in terms of protection of statistical confidentiality of the data subjects, and also the statistical authority that we have in the statistical systems we wanted to bring to these. All these, in the end, they target creating trust on these statistics. So therefore, we started talking about trusted smart statistics, and that's the context in which we are. We adopted several principles. We see it as, well, statistics will be multi-source, meaning that in the future, we cannot have statistics that are just built with surveys or just built with a particular data source. Integration is the key to produce higher end statistical products. But of course, the data sources, they are very expensive. Let's just look at the web. If we're going to do it, we need to do it and be prepared to serve several statistical domains. Also, we adopted another principle, what we call the hourglass model. This basically means that we need to interface the technical knowledge of the platforms. So let's talk about the web. Is you need to know a lot about the web technology, right? Statisticians do not necessarily have this knowledge. So we have to bridge the knowledge between these two levels. Yeah, the technical level, those who know about mobile phone networks. Those we cannot all become experts in mobile phone networks. If there are engineers who know about this, right? So we don't have to understand the technological layer of the web and how the web works. So we need to bridge this to a level where there's some output. As you will see, I will show how we do this with the web, some output that we can use afterwards as statisticians. Modular methodological frameworks, taking into account that this technologies where the data is coming from, they change constantly, pushing computation out, meaning that in order to protect privacy, to do it as close to the source as possible. So minimizing the risk of privacy invasion, less of an issue if we talk about web data, but very serious in other types of sources. So the principle use data without actually sharing. So what we want is that data is used to produce statistics, not necessarily that this data has to be shared with us, which was very common in the, I would say, still existing paradigm in producing statistics. We organize smart statistics or trusted smart statistics in several hubs, depending on the type of source and the specificities of the source. Again, this technology layer, how does the web work? How does mobile phone networks work? So specialized in this, and also the type of data that you can find. On the web, is most of the data you can find is natural language, and this requires particular analytical tools, as I am sure that Mauro and Alessandro have gone through. So each hub would have its own level of its own expertise. We can look at the Web Intelligence Hub as having several layers. We have, I think some people are complaining that maybe it's because I have the chat over the slides. I hope this is the reason.
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay, so I have the chat window on top of the slide. I was not aware that you will not see. So this layer on top of the web data, we will build a platform. This platform will offer services for acquiring the data, processing the data, and transform the data into something actionable, something that we can use to produce statistics. The center point of the hub is what we call use cases. And the use case is simply a particular set of data sources to which we apply the services available on the platform with the purpose to prepare the data so it can be used to produce particular statistics. Yeah. So we have this application. So this is the application of the services in the platform to the data that would produce some micro data sets that we can use afterwards to produce statistics. The driving force for the hub is actually these use cases and the particular statistics we want to produce, because we need particular needs, right? For example, in this case, we want to produce something on skills. But the purpose is that following this multi-purpose, of these new data sources, is that the outputs, the microdata, in this particular case, the information we have at the level of the job advertisements and the classification we have made, so that it is available to produce afterwards other statistics. Yeah. So looking for this being more efficient and so on. Yeah. So this system, for example, have a focus on skill statistics. Now we can also use to improve statistics on job vacancies. So there are several services that this app would provide, from data acquisition, from the transnational data agreements, that we will do it for the benefit of all the statistical system, but also partnership models that the national statistical institutes can use to have agreements with particular data sources that are of national nature and which are better addressed at national level. Also, this will provide IT infrastructure and the tools, mostly via the platform, as I was talking about. It will provide analytical services, in meaning the several algorithms that you have been talking about, offered as services to the users. Would offer methodologies, and I'm talking about state-of-the-art, international agreed methodologies to produce things. Will taking care also of regulatory aspects, or taking care at least identifying the regulatory aspects, in particular those that relate to access to the data. These are the ones that we have identified so far. Also in terms of skills and providing capacity building and training material for the statistical community, and also to as a base, the platform for research and development collaboration, and of course provide governance for all of this. The principles of the web intelligence have to follow those of the Trusted Smart Statistics. It is an ESS hub, meaning that it serves the national statistical systems, the national statistical institutes of the European system. It should serve not only European needs, but also national needs. I mean, the data is there. What we are looking for is that, well, if we are web scraping job advertisements to produce skills intelligence at European level, this data, or the national statistical institutes, should not have the need to collect exactly the same data, trying to process it the same way to produce the same thing in the end. So we're doing it once and for the profit of all those that need, in particular in the statistical world. Follows a modular structure, so we can reuse what, let's put it this way, very frank ways, what Mauro and Alessandra have been developing, so that we can reuse it for other use cases. For example, the priority of the system is that we work together. This is a joint system of the National Statistical Institutes. However, there will be cases where either for the policies of the National Statistical Institute, national legislation, or in order to protect statistical confidentiality, some of these processes might have to be run at national level. So the way we want to do it is that you can run on the hub, you can do the collection on the hub, on the platform of the hub, use the data that we collected, but if you want to, you can redeploy at national level if you wish to, parts of it, potentially. Not necessarily the complete system. So transparency as much as possible. The program should be open source. The process should be certified and auditable. We cannot build such a system as a black box. It has to be as transparent as possible. That's the only way that we can build trust, not only for the users as we normally do, but in this case with our co-producers of statistics in the European statistical system. And also intermediate products data sets should also be used by, should be possible to be used by all the partners. So as I was saying, there were some pilots in the beginning, and in a second stage, there was a focus on implementation, and there were three areas or three pilots, let's put it this way, that were selected for further work in terms of implementation. And as you can see, first, one of them is online job advertisements. Second, actually, from the three, two of them actually are related to web sources. Yeah. So this shows not only, of course, that it's easier than other data sources, but also the level of maturity is definitely higher. So the work that was done in the context of official statistics in Europe, but also at global level, it follows mostly a national approach, where we have national statistical institutes running the pilots, in each one on its corner. But at the same time, we had global initiatives at European level initiatives to build the systems. So CEDEFOP, or the system developed by CEDEFOP, is one of them, but actually there were others, and I just put a connector, let's put it this way. DG Connect is a DG of the European Commission, and they also built a system based on online job advertisements, in their particular case, focusing only on some countries, and focusing also on e-skills, yeah, so digital skills. So we had these global platforms, and our strategy is to use the online job advertisements use case, or the online job advertisement system that was developed by CEDEFOP, as our starting point to build such a hub. Yeah. So how do we create such a hub? So first we needed to build a platform. So this is what we are doing. This is what is running right now. I think actually I have specific slides for this. So the first step, well, we need a platform to run all of this. We need the infrastructure. This has been done. Then we needed to deploy the online job advertisement system of CEDEFOP into this infrastructure. So which was done, all of this last year. And of course, we needed to design an architecture for the reusability. Yeah. So we had this starting point, but we needed to go to the design board and think about what kind of capabilities we need in our platform if you want to do more than online job advertisements. So this is what has also been done last year. And then developed the several components in a modular way, as I was mentioning, for the platform, and launch new use cases. At some point in time, the system that was developed for CEDEFOP then should be ported to this new platform. And so where we are right now is that we are building the components of this new platform, so this is going to happen throughout this year. At some point in time in the future, I have put here 2022, but we keep revising actually. At some point in time, what should happen is that the OGA system should be moved to this new platform. And of course, the building this new platform is based on the lessons that were learned during the build-up of the CEDEFOP system. And very much, I refer to Mauro and Alessandro very often. They're key persons, of course, in doing this work, and they are the ones who successfully built such a system, which is not trivial. I don't know if everyone is aware of it. It's quite an achievement to do such a thing. So we want to build on this experience, on this successful experience, I would say, to build this new platform that we can use beyond online job advertisements. Well, of course, we need to create a community. So we just recently launched what we call the Web Intelligence Network, which is our way to involve the National Statistical Institutes in the operation of the WE. Yeah, the National Statistical Institutes will basically have three roles. They will use the services of the WE, the data that we collect. They will participate in the use cases, for example, using their local knowledge and the access to other sources that somehow are related to job advertisements to improve the quality of the data. And third, of course, they can contribute to the components. Yes. So if in a particular language that we might not have, or that we have a classifier, but this classifier can be improved, If we have a National Statistical Institute that is focusing on a particular, their particular language, and they a better classifier, so we should be ready, prepared to profit from these improvements and welcome it in our platform. So it was just launched in the 1st of April, and it's so in its beginning. So in terms of methodologies, so we need to fine-tune the methodologies. There's one specificity of the way we do things in official statistics is that we discuss at international level, we need to have comparable methodologies. So we need to go through a process where we discuss the methodologies and we agree on common standards and on common methodologies that we should follow. Yes, we need to develop methodology for the new use case. This is something that is actually important. Just to give you an example, when we look at the system as it is right now, we can see that we know a lot about skills, for example, from the system. This was one of the main purposes, the driving force, I would say, for building such a system. Now, we try to build something called labor market concentration. Yeah, so we can use this source also to produce that, right? And what we have learned is first that we focus on different variables. So we need to improve other parts of what was developed, and we need to fine-tune methodologies that before were good enough, I would say, for what we were doing, and now they need to be improved. So we need to have more methodological development. I will just mention another one, which is the need that we have to have the statistics that are produced with such a data source from the data from the web, or in this particular case, online job advertisements, to make proper estimations, valid estimations for the target population that normally we cover with official statistics, so that we can have comparability with other labor market statistics, yeah, like job vacancies or those coming from the labor force survey. So we know that web data, they suffer from selectivity, just like surveys do, but in a different way. And we need to understand the selectivity and have the methods so that we can correct it, so we can do proper inference for the overall population, in our particular case, for basically the overall labor market. Yeah. So this is also something that we have worked on in Eurostat in general for big data sources in the past, and now that we try to be specific for this particular data source. So we are working on it, and I'm hopeful that in the recent future we have at least valid methods that we can use. In terms of learning resources, well, I would say that we don't have to do all of them. So I think we are here in another example of what needs to be done is build capacity. We had in the last year several training courses organized in the context of the European Statistics Training Program. Normally more in generic terms when it comes to natural language processing or gathering data from the web. And in the last years, more focus on those that actually are the ones that we are covering, in particular online job advertisements. And in the beginning of this year, actually, we organized advanced coaching in the beginning of this year that was targeting the statistical community in the European statistical system, where actually the trainers were also Mauro and Alessandro. We want to make the training material available online. There's something that we're still working on. So I cannot give you a URL for where you can go and get this material, but we will get there. We have built a playground, which status now we're still trying to understand what it will be. But the idea is that we should have a playground where actually you can use basically to play with the system and understand the system. Yeah, and of course we'll organize workshops. In terms of regulatory framework, there are some initiatives at European level. Some of them, they go beyond statistics. and others that will be related to statistics. So we might review, or we have in the pipeline a review of the European statistical law. And of course, we want that whatever regulatory or whatever legislation is required, regulations are required, that we integrate it. So now it's the right opportunity, and the revision of the European statistical law, in fact, has in mind precisely adaptation to the new data sources. So I'm pretty sure that I have overpassed